One of the things I wanted to share with you is I recently officiated a funeral, and it was here, as a matter of fact, and there was about 120 to 25 people here. Um, and after I always start with God's plan and the truth of God's plan that we don't need to worry about your loved one because I had already found out that your loved one did believe. Do you believe? Yes. Okay. And so after I go through that, I read some scriptures, but then I open it up for comments because that's very important. And I tell people, you got to understand, God puts people in your life for a reason at a certain time, and you need to begin to understand that that was very important as to who you are. And so I went through this and I opened it up for comments, and I had a couple of people come up and share some thoughts about the deceased. And then all of a sudden, somebody stood up um, uh, in the middle of the room and said, I've got to tell you that I have never heard it explained this way. It finally makes sense, because I would tell people, this service is for you, because you have to realize what a gift you've been given in the life of this person. Every life has meaning. And so what did you learn from this person? And the guy said, it finally makes sense. And he said, thank you very much, and then sat down. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, because it is rewarding to know that you're getting through and you're maybe easing some of the pain. People use this term, I'm in mourning, and it's never a good term in their opinion. But mourning can be cathartic, can be just wonderful, because it makes you think about two things. Number one, think about the person who just passed. What all did they mean to you? What did you learn from them? Sometimes you learn what to do, other times you learn what not to do. But then it also, as I say, it gets you thinking about, who am I in the midst of all of this? Because I'm still here. And when I give people the example of going into a museum, I said, have you ever gone to a museum and all the way at the end of a big hallway is this huge thing called a tapestry? And when you step back from it, you can see the beautiful picture and so forth. But if you ever walked up to it to where your nose was right up against the tapestry, you would no longer see the picture. What would you see? You would see the individual threads that have been woven together to make that picture. And in many ways, folks, you're some of the threads of this person that we're talking about today. You had a part in his overall picture. And so that's God's plan, knowing that connectivity is way bigger than what you think. And therefore, his plan for you is bigger than you'll ever think. And that should give you strength. So,
That's beautiful. And I love the metaphor of the tapestry, because it really is every day, every interaction, everything we do affects others. And that's
yes.
something that you learn through maturity.
Mhm.
As a child, your whole life is centered around yourself and trying to
Absolutely.
figure out who you are. And then as you get older, it's actually everything's about what you do, how you treat others, how others treat you. And it's all part. And, with funerals, there's so many different levels of funerals. There's a traditional funeral, there's a memorial service, there's celebration of life. But at the end of the day, all of them is that individual's final event. How everything comes together, every person that you have a deep relationship with. People come to funerals that you might not have even spoken to in 15 and 20 years, but you touched them, and they're going to come and be able to be a part of your final event. And that's why it's so important. It's so important to have that closure for not only family members,
Sure.
but also friends, anyone that you've touched.
Because I had the same kind of guilt from time to time where I would come to a funeral, but I hadn't spoken to the person in years. And that helped me, because it makes me understand that if you have an opportunity, take it now. Do it. Pick up the phone, send a letter, whatever the story is, just say, hey, look,
Do it.
I want you to know I was thinking about you. And do you remember the time we did boom, boom, boom? And it proves to people that there really is a connectivity that God intended. He wants us to be connected in the many ways that we can be connected.
Mhm.
And so I think in many ways, a funeral is an opportunity to grow and understand. Everybody wants to understand what's going on, right? This helps you. It's an important part.
And it's a pause. Our life,
Yes.
we are just go, 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 work, school, hobbies, children,
Mhm.
go. And when you go to a funeral, it forces you to take a breath, to pause your life and reflect on your own life. It's a big part of funerals. From my experience meeting with families, one of the first things I say is, have you ever had to plan a funeral for a loved one?
Yeah.
Opening up, yes, my mother, we did this. I have regrets about this. But at the end of the day, that experience, a lot of it, I was able to reflect on what I want and how, like you said earlier, how I want to live. And that we don't have a lot of opportunities in life for that. And funerals are definitely one.
And I'm sorry to say that I have a whole bunch of missed opportunities, even though I can talk to you about it and tell you to look for them and so forth. Um, in my age, you look back and it's shoulda, coulda, woulda. I should have said this, or I would have done that, or I could have actually done this. And that's hard because you're looking at yourself and saying, I really should have done better. The truth is, everybody can do that. You can look in the mirror and say, you know what, I didn't do well today. Okay, fine. But there's this wonderful God who sent his son that says, look, whosoever believeth, you'll be fine. That's bliss. So you got to pass that on.
Yeah. Tomorrow's a new day.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And so, kind of going back to what we discussed earlier, a question that I'm wondering is, what through your education as a pastor and your experiences, what happens to us when we die in your perspective?
It's a pro and con. The pro side of things where we just say, whosoever believeth shall not perish. Your soul is instantly appearing in heaven. And it's hard to describe because if you haven't been there, you know, you do have the words of scripture that say it's more wonderful than we can even tell you about and so forth. But on the other side, the person who doesn't believe, like my dad said, for them, when you're dead, you're dead. And there's no getting around it. There are people that say, absolutely, I don't believe, I'm not interested. It's just a joke. I don't want to talk about it. And you look at them and you say, wow, I wish you could just think about this for a minute. But I know that there's people who just don't go where they should be going.
Mhm.
And so that's why a funeral is an opportunity for folks to gather and actually get strength. Some people look at it as a weak kind of thing. No, it's you gather yourselves together and you get strength from the people that you're talking to, or just from seeing. I, I s- I'm in a catbird seat because I'm up front looking at all of the people sitting in front of me, and I can see the wheels turning while we're talking. And that's an important thing. That's a good reason to come because you may hear something that you never even thought of.